to the computer.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Caroline Leavitt. I'm the co-founder, along with my friend and partner, Jenna Blum, of A Mighty Blaze, the book initiative that was begun at the very start of the pandemic to help bookstores who had to shutter their doors, readers who were hungry to know about authors, and authors whose tours were canceled. And we have a very special guest today with a very special book, Marcy Dermansky, and we have Hurricane Girl. This book is extraordinary. It's totally extraordinary. I was just telling Marcy before we got on that I just bought an extra copy for my son. I also want to say that Marcy is also a talented artist. These are her cats that she sent me, and I have it on my bulletin board all the time to look at. So Marcy is the author of the critically acclaimed novels Very Nice, The Red Car, Bad Marie, and Twins. Very Nice received rave reviews in the Washington Post, the New York Times, NPR, People Magazine. Sarah Jessica Parker picked it as one of her favorite summer books. So did I. The Red Car was named the best book of the year by BuzzFeed, San Francisco Chronicle, Flavor Wire, and Huntington Post. Bad Marie was a Barnes & Noble Discover a Great New Writers pick, a finalist in the Morning News Tournament of Books, and named one of the best novels of the year in Esquire. So let's hear some of the praise.
Oh, you're embarrassing me.
Girl, you can just sit and look like abashedly modest. Okay. Okay, the New York Times book review raise. This novel surprises us by blending visceral horror with laugh out loud humor. This unnerving stylistic collision, isn't that great, is sustained throughout as the concussed and bleeding protagonist manages to drive herself to her mother's house in New Jersey, trying to feel grateful despite the hole in her head. A wickedly entertaining read from first to last. The LA Times, Beth Ann Patrick says, Dermansky uses economical prose to tell of 13-something Allison Brody, whose East Coast escape from LA producer boyfriend goes pear-shaped when a storm destroys her North Carolina home. Allison's story is wickedly funny and wonderfully comeback, both satisfying and leaving you wanting more. Newsday says, absurdly funny and cheerful. Omari Weeks of Vulture says, nimble prose, touches of dark humor, and flirtations with the surreal. It's just a wonderful, wonderful book. Oh, we have even more, a starred Kirkus. Just a little comedy about the loss of all worldly possessions, near-death assault, brain surgery, and violent revenge. The only bad thing about this book is that you'll likely finish it in one sitting. Starred Kirkus. Okay. So welcome, Marcy. I'm so happy to have you here. I love your book. I love your art. And I have a lot of questions to ask.
Great. Hi, Carolyn.
You are welcome. First of all, I also want to tell people watching, we did have technical difficulties, so you cannot ask our questions right now, but this interview is going to live forever on our YouTube station. And also on our Mighty Blaze station, so you can always post comments there. Please buy your book from an independent bookstore. We have a Mighty Blaze like bookshop.org, or just walk out to your favorite one. Okay, so I always want to know what is haunting or obsessing an author into writing a book, probably because that's the way I do things.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it was for you? What was the seed of this book, and how did it come forth?
I mean, when I start to write, it's really like a blank screen. There really was just a seed. It's like, what if somebody were to get a beach house and lose it right away? And that was really all I knew going into writing this book, was that was what I was going to do to the main character. And I didn't know much about her, and I didn't know what was going to happen after she lost her beach house. I think I've always wanted a beach house, and I don't think I'm going to have one. And maybe it's not even that prudent in these climate days to have your own beach house. But so that's what I did. And that was really the inspiration, was just like that one sort of sentence of an idea.
Is that the way it is for all your books, that you just have an idea and
Yeah, it really is. Like, starting books is always the hardest part for me, because I don't have a plan and I don't know where I'm gonna go, and I just sit down and I type, and if I'm on a good day, I'll type something that's like, okay, this is what I'm gonna keep going with. Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. That's amazing. So you sort of have the writing gene in your DNA that allows you to do that.
I guess so. I mean, you have a different writing gene, it sounds like. So
there's such a sense in this book too of that, like every minute everything can change, and it
Yeah.
will change, and not the way you expect. How much of the pandemic is responsible for that feeling, or is that part of your genetic?
I think, I mean, the funny thing about the pandemic is I didn't write through most of the pandemic because my daughter was virtually schooled, you know, for a whole year, and I couldn't write while she was at home. But the really great part was that Hurricane Girl was about like 90% done when the pandemic, like, that's great. But it sounds funny, but because I was already writing it, I was able to write the end. And basically the only new part of the book was the end. And the end is pretty dramatic. And I kind of wonder, like, the end is like a horror movie. Like, it feels like a horror scene. Like, I wanted it to feel like a horror scene. Like, that was not an accident. But I wonder if I would have wanted to write something so horrific if it weren't the pandemic, and maybe not. You know, I think those two have to be tied together. But otherwise, I mean, I spent most of I don't even know what I did. I had an editing job. I had one client. She just kept sending me her book again and again. I was like, I'll take it. It's money, because I couldn't really focus otherwise. You know, I couldn't focus on my own stuff.
Nobody could. But it just feels like that sense of any minute made this sort of perfect pandemic reading. And the thing that I so deeply admired about this book was that it's so funny, and yet at the same time it's so horrifying. I mean, the stuff about the hole in her head and the concussion, and I mean, who would think you'd be gleeful reading about that? But I was. I mean, I loved it.
Maybe, I don't even know, like, when I wrote about a character who has a hole in her head, the funny thing is, and this is in the book, like, what's fiction, what's not fiction, is there was a student in my graduate school class who literally, and I wrote a story called Hole in Her Head. Like, that wasn't made up. And it was, I don't remember a word of it, but it was the worst story ever. But like, that came into my head when I was writing. I was like, that's so funny that I'm actually writing about a hole in the head. Like, for a little while, I even had that as like a tentative title, because it was just like stealing from my former student, my former classmate.
Did you know how she got the hole in her head? I mean,
and that's true. I don't remember a word of it. It was just bad.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I just don't think that writer's watching. So fingers crossed.
That's so. Did you research brain trauma?
I did research brain injury for sure. Yeah, because I didn't know anything. And
wow. And what surprised you the most about what you learned?
The one that, I mean, I could have did more research, obviously. And the thing I learned the most is that people, when they wake up, because there's so much swelling in their brain, and I put this in the book, that so when she wakes up in a hospital, she's sort of sit up and she's got restraints around her. And they do that, apparently. That was surprising.
Did you feel freaked out when you were writing that? Because I felt freaked out reading it, but I couldn't stop.
That's so funny. No, I didn't feel freaked out. But I mean, I thought it was sort of funny how she kept on saying to her doctor, well, I didn't consent to my having surgery. And she'd already had it. So it was kind of ridiculous, but she wouldn't let that go. So that seemed funny to me.
It was funny. In fact, there's one quote that I love where Allison says she wonders, what would it be like to be a man and not a nice man? And that propels her into action. And by the end of the book, she's really reclaimed herself. So this is a roundabout way of getting to my question about what kind of feminist are you?
Oh, I mean, I was just sort of raised a feminist. Like, it wasn't a question. Like, I didn't have a choice whether or not I was a feminist. Like, my mother worked for this feminist newspaper that was called New Directions for Women. And it was like more lefty. Like, I think they used to criticize Ms. Magazine. Like, they saw Ms. Magazine almost as their adversaries. So it was just what I had to be. And I didn't, I mean, I think sometimes children of really liberal parents can go in the other direction, right? And that's awful. But I just went with what my mother told me. So
I love it. So you didn't rebel against your mother at all?
No. And then, like, my mom always wanted to be a writer. So, you know, she wasn't, you know, so here I'm kind of doing what she wanted to do. So she's like super proud. So that's nice.
That is really nice. That's really nice. So, you know, I loved Allison. I worried about her and I loved her and I wanted to talk to her. And I want to know, like, how is she doing now? Do you have any sense of what she's doing now or how she is?
Well, it's funny. I got a really nice email from a friend who finished the book. And like, I kind of always leave endings like a little bit open. I think there is an open ending, and it's really, really similar, which I didn't do on purpose, to Bad Marie, which has an open ending. And so, I mean, there's two different ways you could take it. You could take this book really realistically, and you could think about like what really, really bad stuff could happen to her. And I don't want that to happen to her.
No, I don't think bad stuff happens to her.
No. So my friend actually wrote to me. She was like, from a realistic standpoint, she's like, oh, she's going to get therapy and she won't be held accountable for any of this, and she's going to live happily ever after. And I was like, sure, like, why not, right? Like, why not imagine?
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Did we spoil the book? I don't think so.
I want to talk a little bit more about the whole issue of feminism, because Allison is a feminist who wants to be taken care of.
Yes.
And I wonder, why is wanting to be taken care of, not all the time, but sometimes, considered unfeminist? I mean, can't you go out and conquer the world and still go home and be really glad that someone's done the dishes and they're making you dinner?
Right. I mean, I feel like maybe this was a kind of feminism I think that I took on that I don't think my mother said, but I think this whole idea with being feminist is also being self-reliant. So if you're like a feminist, you're going to like make your own money, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like I actually do feel like sort of embarrassed. Like, so this is me too. Like, how can you be a feminist and want a rich husband? Like, so I mean, like,
why can't you mix the two? It's like,
so but like, here's a funny thing. Like, when I was like starting my career, like I don't know if you envy people. The person who I think I envied the most always was Sofia Coppola, who's a filmmaker, because Sofia Coppola comes from royalty, you know, like the Coppola family, the Coppola money, and the Coppola love and support, right? And so I think that she like Lost in Translation, when it came out, was just like my favorite movie for the longest time.
Oh, it's a wonderful movie.
So wonderful. But I don't think she could have been that successful and that ambitious. I don't think she could have had even the notion that she could direct her own feature film. I don't know how old she was, if she hadn't had that kind of support.
Yeah.
Whole life.
That's really, really interesting. And I think that's really, really true, because, you know, if you grow up with any sort of dysfunctional family or not with a lot of money, you have a very different attitude towards success than somebody who's grown out of privilege and had somebody saying, of course you can do this, darling.
And you don't have internships, because
you don't have internships, and you don't, it is really a case of who you know, what contacts you have, what internships you can get, who's going to, you know, if you write a book and your parents are famous, they can take that book to Random House. You don't have to get
like Lena Dunham came from, like, her parents are like incredible artists.
I sort of
so jealous. Like, I'm just sounding so petty because I don't come from a place of like non-privilege, but I do feel like I did it myself. And I did have a first husband who had no money. And I mean, like, wow, like, so, you know, if I had to do that again.
Yeah, but you know what? My first husband had a ton of money.
Oh, really?
He was like, oh my God, he was really, really rich. And I was miserable. We never went on vacations because he was kind of cheap. And I was not happy. And when I left, I didn't take any alimony whatsoever.
You didn't? See, it's so unfunny, but I'm like, I wish you had.
I wish I had now too.
You probably hated it.
At the time, I felt, well, that's really feminist. I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to make it on my own in New York City. So there. Yeah. And then, of course, 10 years later, I thought, gee,
I could have
taken like at least 10,000.
Because we were sort of raised not to.
But I think that's really interesting. It comes across so well with Allison. So I wanted to talk about, there's a fabulous mix of horror and comedy. You know, I'd laugh and then my hand would go across my mouth and absolute horror. I was wondering, is that just the way you are in real life, or were you consciously mixing the two to achieve that wonderful tone?
I think, I don't know, because I can't go around saying that I'm like funny. Do you know what I mean? But they made you laugh. I can't be funny on purpose. Like, I don't think I could be like a stand-up comic. I don't think
That's
I could.
Interesting.
I don't think I could write comedy, but I think all of my work has been considered comedic. And I think I like to have sentences that have balance. So I know, like, I'll write one thing in the next sentence, and I don't have an example, which I wish I did, because I should get that ready. It'll say the exact opposite. I do that all the time. And so I think that's the horror and the humor. And I think I know that it's there. Like, I think when I write a funny line, like, I know it, I'm like, oh, good. But I don't know how I mean, how do we know how we do anything? Like, that's
we don't know. We don't know. Do you, once you've done with a draft, do you show it to anybody before you send it?
Well, I'm really careful, because I've had bad readers in the past. You know what I mean? Bad readers, and so mainly and I'm really, really blessed. I'll use that word. Like, my first reader for them is, I have a friend, and she just says everything I do is wonderful. she sent me more pages. Like, it's like kind of like, I don't believe her, but I love her and I need her. And she just says everything is great. So she's my first reader. She just makes me feel really, really good. But she's also smart. You know what I mean?
Okay,
so she's
so
not
that's
just
good.
a complete fool. Yeah. But anyway, so she's my first reader. And then the next reader, nothing constructive, like nothing. Like it's just me getting praise as I go. And that helps me a lot. It's like a hand holder. And then I send it to my agent. And he's my second reader. And he usually is like, yes, but. And so
that's so interesting, because I always say that I can take criticism that can be brutal as long as it's based on the fact of, I think you're talented, I love your writing, and then the but, then I can listen to the but, because I feel like, okay, that person's on my, but like you, I've also had readers who were just like awful. I mean, I had one reader say, you know what, every writer has a book that should be burned. This is yours. Go ahead, I'll wait for you to get the matches.
Who can say that to a person? Like, do you know what I mean? Like that person must not be we don't have, but like that's a bad person, I feel like.
That's not a happy person.
No, because people can be wrong. You know what I mean?
Yes,
they can be so wrong. And what if you do take a match to your book? You know, like if you give it to the wrong reader, you're not going to finish it. It can
kill you.
It
can actually destroy you if you give it to the wrong
really damaging. Like writing professors are really damaging. Like if you're like, when I went to writing programs, they were like some teachers' pets. And if you weren't the teacher's pet, like the whole program didn't seem useful, you know? So
wow. Yeah, that's really true. It's like I've sort of stayed away from writing, even though I teach in a writing program.
That's hilarious.
I stayed away from one myself because I had such a terrible experience.
I think it can be really, really bad experiences. And I mean, writing workshops, like I knew, like when I was writing in graduate school, I kind of knew what I was doing was good. Like actually, it was better than a lot of people's, but the people who didn't write as well as you did, they sensed it and they were mean and they would just give you like mean comments. You'd be like, thank you.
You know, it's terrible. I mean, it's like sometimes it's like reading the reviews on like a place like Goodreads or something, or people will say, you know what, I thought this character was garbage and should be thrown in the trash, and so should the writer. And you look at it and say, really? And then you look at to see like, well, what other books has this review?
But then you're this weird path, right? Where you're looking at like this person who's been mean to you. You're like, I totally have done that. And sometimes they'll just not only say the book is garbage or the writer's garbage, like when they say the main character is garbage and the main character.
I take offense.
It's like sort of based on you, maybe, perhaps, who knows, you know? So I'm like, yeah, sure.
Marcy, I would really love it if you would read just 2 pages, just two pages.
Okay. 2 pages. Well, then I think the easiest thing, really, the opening of the book is like.
Read the opening. Read the opening. I would love to hear that.
All right. Oh wait, I've got glasses. I've got a cat looking at me from the floor.
Oh, we're going to talk about cats next.
Okay, good. Will you stay there, Ginger, so I can show you off later? All right. So this is okay. I'm going to read the first 2 pages because it ends at a nice spot.
Okay.
Allison Brody bought a beach house. She was 32 years old, sick of everybody and everything. All she wanted to do more than anything really was swim. The beach house was small. It was in North Carolina, in foreclosure. She'd put cash down, emptying her accounts, everything that she had. She used money saved from waitressing, money saved from a small inheritance from her father when he died almost a year ago. She'd sold a script too, and made some okay money with that. A solid chunk. It was a horror script. It would not necessarily make a good film, but a famous actress had agreed to star in it. And so there could be more money, more scripts, success. Allison had been seen as a movie producer's pretty girlfriend. She could have been known in her own right. Probably it had been stupid to leave Los Angeles just when her career had started taking off and there were so many places to swim. The movie producer, for instance, had a beautiful swimming pool. Maybe leaving had been stupid. Maybe Allison wanted to create art one day after she swam. Maybe one day she would want to have a cat. It's all on the first page. The movie producer was allergic to cats. Maybe she actually wanted to live alone, and certainly not with a man who had hit her. It had only happened a few times, exactly 3, but it also seemed possible that it could happen again, even though the movie producer had promised that it wouldn't. She drove cross country, doing the speed limit, buying coffees from Starbucks along the way. And the beach house turned out to be perfect. 2 small bedrooms and a bathroom on the 2nd floor with a view of the ocean. A front porch where Allison could drink her coffee and breathe in the ocean air. Almost all Allison knew about North Carolina was from a long ago vacation, and it was wonderful, her favorite childhood memory. The road trip had been insanely long, a caravan with another family. They had taken regimented bathroom stops. When she woke, she had been delivered to a house with an oval swimming pool and a view of the ocean. Allison remembered a large pink dolphin float in the pool with a cup holder built into it for drinks. All the parents got drunk every night and everyone laughed a lot, and the kids were allowed to do whatever they wanted. And that's the
I
opening.
love it. I love it. I love, some readers, when they read, there's
Mhm.
like a writerly voice.
Yeah.
Like when you read, you just sort of pull us into the whole story world.
Well, thank
It's
you.
wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. So what I also loved about Allison was that she didn't go for the revenge, but you know what? Good people can do bad things and you can still love them, like we
Yeah.
love her. She has these moments that I love. She talks to her belly. She has a moment with a cat.
Mhm.
Can you talk about like how you went about creating her? Like, did you feel her talking in your head, or did you just, go into the zone and things would reveal themselves to you?
I mean, I think I definitely go into a zone and reveal myself. Yes, exactly. And sometimes I don't know. I think it's funny, like that first page was rewritten so much. And I think I got it all in there. Like the cat's in there, the swimming pools are in there. The horror script, which is going to lead to horrors in there. So the beach house, it's all in there. And I didn't do that on the first draft because I didn't know. Like, how could you know? And so I think every time as I keep writing, that's how I write. I just keep writing and moving forward. And I don't get to the end of a first draft. I don't need these anymore. I don't get to an end of a first draft and then revise. I just revise the whole time. And so usually the beginning is way more worked over than the end.
Oh, really? So you would never like have a first draft and say, okay, now I'm going back to the beginning, and
no,
you just sort of do it in increments.
I feel like everything has to be right before I can keep going on. So I feel like by the end of my first draft, I'm probably on like my 6th or 7th draft.
Wow, that's really interesting. So tell us about your own personal relationship with swimming and water, because that image is like through this, and I was just really curious because I'm terrified of the water.
You're terrified. See, that's wow. It's a swimming. Yeah. See, I'm like interesting. Like that's like a whole different way of existing on this earth than that you and I have. I mean, I went swimming today. Today, my daughter didn't have school, and it's like almost 90 degrees, and we went to a lake.
It's disgusting.
We went swimming at a lake, and that's one reason like why I have wet hair, because I had to like rush home and take a shower before this. It felt very unprofessional that I just showed up right on time. But swimming just makes me feel good. Like if I have a headache, if I feel really worried, I just go underwater and everything is just better. Like if I'm in the ocean, it's just like instant happiness when I'm jumping waves. I don't even know how that works. And so
you don't worry about box jellyfish
no.
or sharks or
no. I mean, I think if you go swimming in Cape Cod, you need to worry that there's jellyfish. I mean, or not, maybe not jellyfish, but sharks. Yeah, those are the big fears. And I'm lucky because now that you say it, like it makes sense. Like it seems completely rational to have those fears, but I don't. There was one time like 2 years ago when I went to Asbury Park and they didn't let people swim. And I think that actually there was a red flag. I think that actually was because there were jellyfish. So I think I have this like trust, like I really do trust these beaches that I have to, in New Jersey, for instance, you have to pay to go onto the beach. And so the lifeguards are there.
They're there,
and they have their flag.
Right.
So I just don't feel like I have to worry. And in New Jersey, for instance, there haven't been sharks. I won't say there aren't sharks because I'm sure there are. I've seen dolphins in Asbury Park.
Yes, I've seen dolphins.
Isn't it nice?
I do go to the beach, but I just don't go in the water.
Okay, so we can go to the beach together and I can swim.
Yeah. I'll just wait for you from showers and say, look out.
I can send you out to get lemonade.
I want to talk about your extraordinary talent as a painter.
Yeah.
Marcy sent this to me and I love it so much. It is on my bulletin board, which is right over there, so I can look at it all the time when I work. And I love it. Have you always painted? What does painting do for you that writing does not?
I like painting. It's just there's no anxiety. There's no anxiety at all connected to painting. If I don't paint for a month, I don't feel bad about myself. Like if I don't write for a month, I feel awful. Like if I paint, it's just kind of fun. I started painting when my daughter was like about 3 or 4. I had never painted for my life, but because she was just doing art, and I was like, I might as well paint with her, so I'm not bored. And then my work was coming out well. Like I liked it, and what I think, like what my mom always says, at least, is that my brother and sister both went to like art school. like they both have fine art degrees. And I think I just sort of said not for me and just assumed I didn't have talent. And so writing was my thing. And then I'm like, oh, I make these paintings and they're nice. And I don't challenge myself with my art, by the way. Like I don't work big. I like small things, and I only use watercolor. One time I tried to use oil paint. I'm like, this is awful. I hated it. Yeah.
That
And
is
so
so funny. It's
yeah.
it's so funny because in high school,
Mhm.
I was also a painter and a writer, and I got a scholarship to Mass College of Art while in
Oh,
high school, and I took these special classes.
wow.
But I felt the same way. It was like I didn't like it unless I could just do it quickly,
No, really?
have fun with it. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, and
I
I
guess
only
paintings can take hours and hours. Yeah.
yeah,
No.
I just do it with watercolors now, and it's
Okay.
just easy, safe. Whereas writing is like where I have to focus, and
Yeah.
that's like for my mental sanity. But I
Right.
just want to show this glorious picture again. Look at that. Look at the expression. I love it. I absolutely
Yeah.
love it. Okay, I have two last questions,
Okay.
and they're the questions I always ask. The first one
Okay.
is, what's obsessing you now and why? Beside politics, no politics.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not obsessed with politics. I had
Really?
been. Like,
Wow.
I used to be. Like, I definitely did get burned out. Like, Biden got elected, and I
Right.
find him mildly disappointing. And like, there are these trials going on right now, and I'm just not. I just can't. I just felt like it took so much out of me. So that's not. I'm still care, and I still send money. But I answered your question anyway. So we're talking about that. I don't know. Like right now, literally, I think it's summer, and really getting to swim enough is what obsesses me. Like that's in my book, and that's just true. And so,
Right. Do you
yeah.
feel different when you finished a book? Like, do you feel that you've learned either a writing lesson that you can apply to your next book or a
Yeah.
personal lesson about yourself through your characters?
Doesn't that sound great?
Yeah, it would sound, that's why I'm asking. I'm always hoping you're going to say yes, absolutely.
No, no to either.
No
Yeah.
to either. Yeah. You
Yeah.
know what? I've asked that question of so many writers and they
Oh,
all say
really?
the same thing. No,
Oh, so do you ever get a yes?
no, never. I've
Really? Oh,
never gotten a
hilarious.
yes.
Really? So
Never.
we never learn, and we never have anything of value from the experience. I mean, that can't be true, right?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I would like to say no, it can't be true. Because I think just writing, I think it's more of a chance that you change personally in some way because you've lived through this other person's life in your
True.
book. I don't know about the learning things that you can apply to other novels because part of the fun and terror is trying to do everything all differently.
Yeah, like what it would be a big fear for me is like, do some writers, I don't have one in mind where you like love their first book so much and then you don't really like what they keep on doing. And to me, that would be heartbreaking. You know what I
That would be
mean?
terrible. Yeah,
Yeah.
I could not do.
I mean, I have a thing right now and I'm fine with it, by the way, but people are, whenever when I write so many books, whenever I write a new book, people always be like, oh, I really like that, but I like Bad and Read better. Like that's
I hate when people say that. Yes,
You hate
this
when
is a
people say
message to readers out there. Don't never say that to a writer. It's terrible. Consider it like if a writer had two children
Yeah.
and you go to them and you say, oh, your youngest is so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, I like the oldest too, but the youngest, I
I
mean,
love that you get that because I think that's the first time I ever said that out loud. Honestly, it is.
no,
the
I
first time
hate
said it
that.
out
I
loud.
hate that.
Okay.
I will tell you that I look at every single one of your books as something new, and I love them all. I
That's
mean,
so
it's
nice.
like a different delight, but it's like I'd like to go to a dinner party with all of them,
That'd be fun.
and just sort of go around the table.
Might be a little. I mean, I was thinking in college, one of my writing professors, like my final, like I got this final letter, and she wrote about how what a good job I did at writing unhinged female characters.
Oh,
I still hear that though. So they're all unhinged, right?
They're all human and they're all wonderful. Okay, my
Yeah.
last question is, what question did I ask that I should have that you really want to talk about?
I just think you did a great job. Like it's nice to talk to you. I feel like except for it feels like it's been easy and good except for the technical.
It's easy and good. Yeah, it's really, we've got to hang. We've got to get together and hang. So
we will. Okay.
We will. Okay. I want to tell everybody out there, please, this book, buy it from your local indie. It's just, it's so wonderful. It's the perfect reading experience for now. And once again, I bought it. I bought an extra copy for my son because I just want, I want everybody to read it and share it. You can rewatch this video and enter questions and comments.
I'll promise to go look because I feel like it was my fault for tech problems.
It wasn't your fault. Don't apologize.
Okay.
At YouTube or on Facebook. And thank you all for being here. And we'll see you later. And Marcy, just stay on. I'm going to
I'll stay on. Thanks, guys.